So an important part of many programming languages is functions, and for many systems, events as well. So we're going to have a look at those in JavaScript. So you'll appreciate concept of events in JavaScript. We're talking about the browser and also how to use functions in JavaScript, which applies anywhere you use JavaScript. These are the commands we're going to look at. So events, what does it mean? An event in the world of computers is when something happens, simply speaking. Now we're thinking of browsers, so basically we're thinking of perhaps clicking on something or maybe moving the mouse, that's an event. Pressing a key on the keyboard, those are events. Lots of things which trigger events. And then you write some code, that code handles that event. That's the idea. So let's look at our first event, which we've probably seen before. This one is the onload event, and pretty straightforward. It just says that this particular item, whatever item that it is next to, has loaded in the browser. So in this case, it means the body. In other words, the web page has loaded. When it's finished loading, then run this line of JavaScript. Straightforward. So web page has loaded, run this piece of JavaScript. And we've seen this before. This just shows a little window with a little message. All right, so complete example here. And that's filling in something in our body, which is not very important. And there's our message, our instruction. Web page loads, run this JavaScript. All right, now what could we put in that area here? What JavaScript could we add? Well, we could add whatever we want. We could add a huge sequence. So there's like a first thing, do this browser, and then do this browser, another little window, and then something else, another window. And as long as you separate them with semicolons, then you could have a big, long series of JavaScript if you really want to. However, that's not very efficient, not a great idea to squeeze lots of JavaScript in here. It's not smart. So really what we should do, by the way, this is what it looks like. If you run it, you get a window, hello, another window, start soon, another window, excited, just to show you what it looks like. But we're really focused on the actual function and event idea. We're not really focused on what does it look like. Okay, so let's think, what could we do better? Instead of squeezing everything into a little space, which is very hard to manage, we want to really squeeze it into, not squeeze it, but put it together in a collection and then call the collection. And we call that collection a function. So first we define the function with any kind of name like this, open bracket, close bracket, braces, open braces, close braces, and then you put your JavaScript code in the middle. And then you run that function like this. So you group together code and then you run all of that code. And you could run it once like this, or twice or 3 times, simply by doing this every time you want to run that code. Here's a complete example. So this is the web page, and we said when we load the web page, finish loading, now we're using a function. Greet the user, come up here, greet the user. It's a function we've made to put together that code. And so it does the same thing, alert window, prompt window, and then it's finished. All right? But it's much more efficient to organize things like this with functions. All right, so what can we do with functions? Well, if you've done any kind of programming before, then you'll know these kind of things. We could pass something to a function. So that comes up in here. So you run the function like this, whatever the name is, and then you pass something to the function like this. That comes up in here. Cats has the value 10 if we run it like this. Cats has the value 10. You do something clever using the variable cats, and that is how we can pass a value to a function. All right, what else could we do? We could get an answer back from the function, a response from the function. So let's say we say, okay, run that function. Up it comes here, it runs the code, whatever's in here, and this time it's going to return some kind of response. Maybe there's a variable called answer, and in here you work out the value to put in answer, and then the value comes back, and then it goes to the left-hand side, and it gets stored in a variable, and it gets used in some way. Okay, you don't have to use a variable. You could, return 10, something like that. Return text, dogs, something like that. You could return text, you could return a number, you could return lots of things in JavaScript, and then you might store them and show them on the screen, hundreds of things you could do. Okay, so that's the basic idea of returning an answer from a function. So here's a simple example here. When you load this file, you get to see a little message. This is my naughty home page. And then it runs a JavaScript code. Check the user's age. When the web page is loaded, check the user's age. That's down here. So what does that say? It says, okay, let's run another function. Just for example, two functions working together. Check the age of the user. Is it less than 18? If it is, up comes a little window. Please go to another page. You cannot look at this web page. What is this? Age of user. That's down here. Age of user. What does it do? It basically just gets some input using prompt from the user. What is your age? Stores it and then converts it to an integer. All right, and then stores that and then returns the integer number. The number gets returned. Whatever they type in, that number comes here. So if they type in 99, okay, then 99 comes here. Is 99 less than 18? It is not. So there will be no message shown. What happens if they load the page and then they type in 5? Okay, 5 will come in here as text. Then we have to convert it to a number, like an integer over here. Return the number over here. Is 5 less than 18? Yes, it is. So show the little window. Okay, let's run this example. Okay, so here we're running the example. Very simple. What is your age? All right, let's do what we just said. 99. Press enter. My age is 99. What happens? It runs through those functions and does nothing. In other words, I can still see the web page. Let's try the second example. Reload. Okay, what is your age? The other example was like 5. So my age is 5. It goes through those functions and it says, wait, please go to another page. And then, actually, it does not take you to another page. But still, that's our simple example and illustration of using functions. Let's go back to our presentation. All right, now there's other things you can do with functions, many things. And here's one. We're just going to quickly mention it, a recursive function. Now, recursion is a little bit more advanced. Don't worry if you haven't heard of it, you don't know about it. The idea is simple. A function calls itself. So let's say we have a function like this, and it has some kind of variable going in, and then that function has some code. That code calls the same function, all right? It's calling do something. That is its own function name. It's the same thing. So that is a recursive function. It's a kind of special loop. A function that calls itself is a special kind of loop. How would you start it? Well, you would start it in the usual way, but probably you would pass it some kind of number, some kind of control variable. That comes up in here, and then when that function runs itself, you would adjust that control variable. And then it would come up here, and come down here, and up here, and come down here. Each time you would adjust the control variable. That's the typical way of using recursion. So here's a simple example, and we're not going to do much recursion. So we load the page, and then we have some code. That code immediately gets executed. It's my, and then it has something here. It runs a function. And then it says grandmother. Okay, so it's my, and then this is some text. This text is constructed using the function. And what it does is it calls itself. So that function is here. Build great. Build great. It calls itself in a special kind of loop. And we're not going to spend a long time discussing it. The idea is it starts with a control number, like 5. 5 comes here. And then we come down here. Oh, add some text, add the word great in front of another load of text. The other text is going to be created using the same function. But this time we adjust the control variable. So that comes up here. And then we add some more text, the word great, in front of more text. It adds the word great. Great, great. We have a special kind of loop, a recursive loop, and it constructs some text. added on the front of other text. Eventually, it finishes. So this is just a quick illustration of a recursive function in JavaScript. Don't worry too much about it. We don't have to use recursive functions in JavaScript. This will build a series of text like this. Okay, it's my great, 5 greats, for this particular example, grandmother. That's what's happening with that example. Again, don't worry too much about recursion. It's clever stuff, slightly more advanced. You can do it in JavaScript, but most people don't. Right, so that's the end of our introduction to functions in JavaScript.